All right, so let's make a start. So, welcome to all of you from all over the world. We have people from India, from Germany, from the Far East, even from London, and certainly many European countries. My name is Anton Dell. Um, I run the Anton Dell, my own consultancy, and we specialize in helping fashion brands to find agents worldwide. And we've been doing that for 25 years. And during this lockdown, it's been a very interesting process for me. Like many people, I'm trying to make things sense of everything and find new ways to work. I'm reinventing myself, trying to anyway. I think I'm working towards becoming a webinar rock star, but perhaps that's a bit too ambitious.
You're almost there, Anton.
Yeah. So today we have a really, excuse me, practical presentation for you with a lot of information and facts, and you'll be able to ask questions on the chat button below. Please send your questions. We'll deal with them at some point during the seminar, during the workshop, but probably nearer towards the end. Depends on how many questions we get. So let me introduce you to my good friend and colleague, Julia Simon, who is in New York. She's a very well-known agent there. And I'm just going to let her introduce herself and tell you about what she does.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Anton. So I'm really glad to be here. Thank you, everyone, for listening to us. I hope we will give you valuable feedback on how to enter the US market. Well, I'm the owner of Editor Showroom in New York. We have a showroom on 29 between 6 and 7. We're actually moving soon to 38th Street. We decided to partner with 2 other showrooms for next season to gather our forces together, and that's going to happen at the end of June. This is one of our exciting projects. We're moving to a beautiful space. We specialize in launching designers in the US, consulting for sales development. We work with all department stores and luxury boutiques. We represent today 10 designers and looking for more, of course. And so as personally, I arrived in the US in 2004. I'm French, as you can hear it from my beautiful, strong accent. And I arrived in the US as a CEO of René Mancini. It used to be a shoe brand that had stores in New York, Geneva, and Paris. And when I did that for 2 years, and then when that stopped, I decided to start a showroom, which came from me looking to lease a space and start a store. And I was looking for European brands. And believe it or not, but at the time I couldn't find Acne in the US. So I thought there was like a bit of something to do to introduce European brands into the market and have more representation within US stores. So that's how I started Edita in 2006. And we are, still alive today, kicking it, even in this very difficult time. And I hope for many more years. My passion is launching brands, as well as the passion of my team. It's not an easy job, but we do it every day and we love it.
Okay, brilliant. So one of the things I can guarantee you here today is we're going to have lots of laughter, because Julia is famous for her laughter. She's always so delightful to be with. Okay, so we're going to start with some basic facts and figures, and just to give you some information about the States. So the USA imports annually $370 billion of value of clothing. That's equivalent to 17 billion clothes, which is pretty extraordinary. When you think that the population of the USA is 320 million, that's 51 pieces of clothing each year for each person, which is really a massive amount. And I don't imagine where all of it goes to, but I can't think that 51 pieces of clothing are bought every year.
They have nice credit cards.
Some of it gets burnt or something terrible. So there's a lot of information which is going to be on the screen here, which you don't have to note or remember. It'll be in a recording if you want to access it afterwards. So these are the names of the key stores in the USA. As you can see, there's a lot of them. A lot. Certainly, some of them are going to be reduced after the COVID-19, but you know, there's still a lot and plenty to go to try and sell to. These are the key online sales channels. Online is bigger in USA than it is in much of Europe, and I think American shoppers have taken more to online channels. Although I have my own view about the ongoing success in the percentage figures, but I think it's about 60% in USA at the moment. There are also 74,000 individual clothing boutiques, which is a massive number and way out of proportion to other European countries related to the population. So again, there's a big independent potential market there for brands that do not want to sell to the majors, as they're called over there. These are the four key selling areas, which are represented by agents in the different areas. Some cover more than one area, and they can be further subdivided into smaller areas as well, where you get road wraps. So here's, I think, an important thing for you to note. There's a difference in the terminologies between the Europe and the rest of the world and the USA. So what we call an agent over here is called a showroom in the USA. In Europe, most agents have showrooms, but not all of them do. But showroom is a showroom in America, and that's how it works. They work on similar commissions. There's another kind of agent in Europe that sells in hotels and on the road that may not have a showroom because they're very expensive these days. And in America, they're called reps or road reps, and they tend to do the same thing. They'll show at fairs at the moment. And agents and reps are becoming, and showrooms, one of the key people who will benefit from this COVID-19 because of the lack of shows. More the agent and the rep and the showroom become much more important than they ever used to be. Distributors in Europe and the rest of the world, there's a lot of them. Most of them want 20-35% discount on wholesale price. In America, there are not so many distributors, and they tend to be more financial organizations rather than people who go and sell clothing. They'll help importation and dealing with that, and there are certain companies who specialize that we can help you with the names of at some point. We've mentioned two of them here, which is Bergen and CRS. There's another kind of distributor that buys and holds stock at their own risk. This is mostly in the rest of the world. There are some I know in America as well. And that's another way that we can sell. Other terminologies which might be interesting for you all, because people don't always understand in America the words that they use. So MISI, that's a term that's used for more mature customers. It's not as widely used as it used to be. Resort and holiday are collections delivering at the end of the year. Holidays deliver in October, resort in December and January. A resort is mainly collections for vacations, beach and holidays, as you see there. And junior is collections for teenagers. So that's the key differences. We don't use those terms very much in Europe and the rest of the world. And just briefly to mention payment terms so that you've got some idea of what American shops, how they will pay you. So I think I just want to move on now and just ask Julia a question here. So agents and distributors in USA, I've explained what they mean in a way, but could you sort of define the role of the showroom and the rep and any distributors that exist, and just, you know, from your own experience and others who work with you, just talk about it a little bit?
Sure. So basically, the distributors, or is what you said, like they buy the merchandise at a certain price, 30% discount, and then they will sell it into the US. The danger with distributors most of the time, it could be great because you don't have the responsibility. Your merchandise is basically bought, whatever happens, right? But the problem as brand image is if you want to really have a control over it, then you can find your brands in, stores that you didn't want to, or outlets, and that happens a lot. This kind of format is not very common in the US anyway. It's not a very common form of doing business. The most common is showrooms. And when we say showrooms, so basically we offer more services than just sales, or just like road reps, I suppose. So you would have like the shipping, you would have the customs, you have a whole consulting side. I think considering the size of the market, and that's also what you have to consider, is that the market in the US is so big that launching your brand is not going to take 5 minutes. It takes a very specific strategy. It takes a lot of thinking. And a lot of showrooms actually don't even take brands without sales volume originally. And that's kind of what the difference is, I think. It's like that strategy and that, consulting help.
I think one of the concerns, Julia, is for many brands that want to go into the US market is the what the cost of monthly retainers or monthly payments, and they think that why are they paying that in America and they're not paying it in Europe or in many countries of the rest of the world. There are a growing number of exceptions in Europe, but maybe you could explain why you have these charges.
Of course. So that's kind of, what I was preparing to say is that with the size of the market, our services are bigger. We deal with your shippings, we deal with helping you with customs, we deal with helping you with getting you ready to the market. For example, when you want to sell to a department store in the US, well, you have to be EDI compliant, and there's just so many rules and regulations. I think the fact that we charge is also considering the time that we spend. We're not just, oh, hey, here's the collection, I'm going to sell it, and then that's it. There's a lot of work that goes into everything that is before, during, and after. That's maybe not what happens in other countries. Well, and then there's a very specific reason too into the level of New York rents. Let's be honest. But yeah, no, it's mostly a difference of service, and it is also a very difficult market to enter on your own. And to enter in general. I started my company being French in the US, I can tell you that much. It's not easy, so you need help, and I think we give a lot of it, and we give a lot of our time.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting.
And so something that I would like to add is also that I think also by the potential of the market, sometimes Europeans forget that maybe you pay a little bit more upfront, but also if that works, the potential of the market and the sales of that market are going to compensate for that payment, like a lot. You know what I mean? So there is a bit of an investment upfront, but most of the time you get it back pretty fast.
Yeah. So what I think is interesting to know is what happens if you can't find an agent or a distributor? Are there any other routes you can go to market? Really, I don't see how you can do that, but maybe there are other ways that you might know of.
It's kind of difficult because the US, I mean, it kind of like Europe, but the US is so big, and like if you take, well, maybe if you want to market only in New York, you would maybe be able to, or maybe New York and LA, but the size of the market and the different of the states, and what people are thinking in the middle of Ohio is not the same that what people are doing in New York, and most of the big sales in the US don't come from New York and LA, they come from America. You know what I mean? So I think it's a bit difficult. You could test the market a little bit with trade shows, though now trade shows, we don't know what's going on. But there's some smaller trade shows like Brand Assembly or DNA that are affordable and give you like a pretty good first dip into the market. But I'm not like, trade shows for me is more like when you're established maybe, and like you want to see your clients. To find new clients is difficult. I think you definitely need help to get into this market.
Okay, so I guess a lot of people are going to want to know what is the situation with trade shows in the coming months in US. I mean, are any of them happening? I did hear the other day from a friend that Magic has been moved to the middle end of September, but what about other trade shows? Are they still happening, or will
Well,
people go and visit them even?
yeah, they're saying that, well, so we don't really have a clear communication, to be honest. Like, I actually was writing to the resort shows in Miami because a lot of my brands used to show there, and they didn't really say if it was canceled or not canceled. So usually is in July, but I think it's canceled. And then Coterie is still going on in September, so that's maintained. Now, I don't know if buyers are going to go, if we are going to go. It's like the big question mark. All my designers and clients are asking me too. They're like, what do we do? Because, you know, we might have a little bit of a negotiation power over here. But I don't know if we want to. I think it might be actually a good opportunity to, you know, do what I'm doing, which is gathering our forces with several showrooms and try to get more buyers that way, because they'll feel more secure. I mean, I don't know about those big events, and, you know, it doesn't feel really.
Well, it's one of the key things that's happening, I think, in all areas, is that people are working together more. That's for sure. You know, brands working together with other brands, showrooms with other showrooms, to try and help make things moving, and trying to get clients and make clients feel safe when they go into showrooms, you know, by setting everything up in the right way. Would you say there's any particular kind of collections that the people are interested in America at the moment, and what is it they may be not interested in?
Well, it's funny. My team sent me an article yesterday in Vogue, which actually I think describes really well what's going on. We've been, you know, studying, me and my team, like what is attractive to buyers, what has been selling, because we obviously, our clients are asking us for the next season. And what we see is, you know, a different tendency. Of course, people are buying like casual wear. I mean, I guess sweatpants have been like the outfit of the season, but also there's still a little bit of attraction towards staple items, and like more like super fashion forward. I think people buy it for later, and also because now they can have it at a good price, let's face it. But I think it does still kind of like push those kind of sales. People want to buy something that makes them like feel good, but maybe for later. And they buy a lot, or they ask for a lot of like sustainable, ethical, some, you know, brands that have values, a lifestyle. I think we're all trying to get out of our heads a little bit, you know, watching our TV all day. So that's kind of the tendencies that we've been seeing. And in general, for my designers, I always tell them, this is a time for me that, you know, and everybody's saying that actually, to concentrate on your DNA, to really be strong at what you do best. Because, you know, in a time that this is difficult, people are going to turn around and see like what's strong, not, you know, what's not that strong.
No, there was, I think I may have been telling you the other day that there was a survey among British people who were on lockdown, and asked them, you know, what is it you're going to buy when you first go to the shops? So, well, one thing for sure, I'm never going to buy another pair of jeans. All the comfort wear that I'm wearing is just so lovely. I don't want to wear anything tight fitting anymore. So I think, you know.
I know. I'm actually kind of wearing sweatpants under today. You don't see that, but.
Likewise. Likewise. Okay, so what else do I want to ask you? Yes. What about payment from retailers? I know that's often an issue. So if you're dealing with a brand and you're selling to the shops, how do American retailers pay?
Yeah, I mean, that's
I think
always
you need to divide that into two parts, maybe, which is the majors and the independents.
Yeah, so that's always been like a big subject of conversation with all my clients over the years, because that, you know, the US is definitely a hard country to get paid. I think you have to be really good at getting paid. Basically, you have to insist. I'm pretty good at it, and basically, so the small boutiques, I think right now they always want to do like, you know, for designers, I think the best way is to ask for a 30% payment down, which is really hard to get right now. But, you know, except if they're insured by those big financial companies, I would not take a risk at this point. So it's like 30% down. They usually ask to pay by credit card. So most of the European brands have difficulties with that because they don't have like the credit card processing machine. If people can get it, it's definitely better. It makes things a lot easier. I know it's a bit of a road to do in Europe, but it's very nice once you have it because it goes a lot faster. And then there's, you know, as a showroom, for example, we use Jor, the platform, and they propose for buyers to pay directly on there. It's a new feature they've added, and they use the Stripe account, which is kind of a PayPal for e-shops. A lot of European brands actually use Stripe. From my clients, I've noticed. So that's, you know, everybody's trying to make it easier. And then with the department stores, well, you know, they pay net 30, net 60. With the crisis right now, they're asking for net 90. You know, extending payment terms again and again. I mean, to be honest, the department stores, I would be very, 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 very careful right now in terms of like what terms I negotiate with them.
Yeah, I'll just say something about payment as well, and that is that we find that when we're getting clients from America, that PayPal is almost the easiest way to get the payment.
Yeah.
Because they can use a credit card then, and you don't need to have a credit card machine or anything to accept PayPal payments.
Yes,
that's
definitely.
quite a good way to do it. It does cost a little bit more, and most of the clients that I know don't object to paying. I think it's 3 or 4% extra just to get that facility. Yeah. So where do now? I have the impression that Americans are buying later than we do in Europe, and the sales go on for later. Is that how you found it, or because you're
Yeah, I
dealing
mean,
with
you
Western
can
brands,
ask
maybe
my
it's different?
you can ask my team. We feel like we're selling constantly. It's like we get up, we sell, and we go to bed, we sell all year long. No, I mean, actually, we would welcome this like rewire process so bad. Like, no, it's been a bit crazy. Like, it's like a constant selling process. Basically, well, I mean, it's mainly when you sell to department stores too, because you have like those like mid seasons. So you would have like fall 1, fall 2, holidays, resort, you know, like it goes like basically every month there is something, except maybe for December, which, you know, we all go on holidays in December. It's all the time snowing. Yeah, we're selling, there's a lot of seasons. I do think that what we recommend for most of our designers that want to launch, you don't need to follow all those seasons all the time. I think when you launch, if you do the 2 main seasons, you're fine. It's usually when you get into more department store and you need more freshness, because they need constant freshness, but that might change too with what's going on. Then you need to kind of adapt to them. But I think 2 seasons originally is
But how late do you sell, and when do you start selling? For let's just forget.
well, we finished
Things are changing now.
Well, for
Yeah,
example, like in
yeah.
September, we would start selling, beginning of September, technically. Well, we start selling actually August 15, but the real part is September. And then the last show is
That would be for
Dallas.
summer 21, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The last show is Dallas, which happens, I think, at the end of October. So technically, if you want to do New York, Los Angeles, Dallas, you would close your sales at the end of October.
So in many European brands, of course, have this much narrower, earlier selling way of working, which I think needs to change. I mean, I think very exciting is the new ideas started by Dries van Noten, where he's got altogether about 1,000 brands together to change the way selling works.
That would be wonderful. I read that program and I'm like, yeah.
No, I think it's so exciting. So we get rid of this terrible situation where in July, you know, we have winter coats, and in January we have summer dresses, which nobody wants, and therefore everything's discounted, and we can get rid of this noose around our neck. So yeah. So what about, okay, people come to you, to your showroom, but what about where else do Americans go to buy? And could you explain, there's a term that I know you use a lot, market week. What does that mean? Because we don't use that term very much over here.
Yeah, so market week is is really like it's separated from fashion shows in the US, right? It's the week that people come to buy. And some people actually don't really come to fashion shows, or they only come to that market week where the trade shows are. I guess, and if you were in Paris, you would, it's the week that Toronto happens, or like all those premiere class, or like all the shows are there. That's what we call market week, and people go to like showrooms and they go to the trade shows. So in terms of, what was the second question? Sorry.
No, I just said where do people go?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, they kind of do. I mean, obviously they go to your showroom, but if they're going to fairs, I mean, where do they go?
They should only come to my showroom. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, of course.
No, so basically, there's each market week, there's different trade shows. I think I'm not going to name all of them because it.
No, don't.
But
they
the
tend.
big difference.
Do they go? Sorry to interrupt you. My question is, do most of them go to the trade shows? Would you say a high percentage do? Or is that decreasing?
Yeah, I think it depends on what kind of buyer. A lot of the contemporary buyer, the big department stores, they all go to shows as well. So they go to showrooms and they go to shows. But the funny thing is they will go to the show and then they'll come back to the showroom to actually make their buy.
Yeah.
So they kind of go to the shows to kind of look around, and then they'll come back to you like, I need to see more. The small stores, they go, most contemporary stores go. But if you're like more of a designer price point, for example, they never go to shows.
Yeah. So that leads me very neatly into my next question, which is online selling, because, with all the fear of meeting people, I know there's a number of brands that are trying to develop ways to sell their collection online for shops that are afraid to go to your showroom or go anywhere. So have you come across that actually? Any clients that said, oh no, if you can show me online, I'll buy that way, but I won't come in. And what about online selling for you? How do you get involved with it? How do other agents get involved with online selling and introducing their collections to potential online sales potential?
So I've not had the reaction yet, but we've not really been in high market because we're supposed to sell resort right now, but we can't really. So we have put the whole Jour platform in place, and we told we actually added that to our services for our designers. And we do see quite a bit of sales on there, or like first contact, but people want to see. So sometimes we send samples, like we'll send like a few, like best sellers, because that usually helps with seeing at least the quality and the closing. If they like the collection in general, then they'll buy from it. And they really rely on us too. Like we spend a lot of hours on the phone going through the collection and saying what we think or what the best sellers. Basically, the advice of the agent, once they know the collection, is really important right now because it's the only way that they're going to buy. I think they'll come to showrooms. I mean, we obviously have to advertise that we're going to respect rules, and then it's going to be only one person in the showroom at a time. We're going to sanitize clothes. Like we're going to, put all of this in place and look at the rules that the governor in New York is giving when he's giving them. But I think they'll come to showrooms. Maybe like the shows are going to be a little bit more frightening, but I'm not even sure. I think people need to do business. It's going to be a bit more online. I don't know if you can rely completely online. Though with the new capacities, like if you zoom well on your details, if you have a lifestyle, if you make people fall in love with your lookbook, and people can do it. It has to be really good material though.
Okay, so got a question here which I thought might be connected to this. So if you're a designer brand at a luxury cost, how do you attract those buyers that don't go to trade shows then? If you don't have an agent, or if you have a showroom, or if you don't have a showroom, maybe there's two ways here. What would you? How do you?
So those buyers, it's an interesting question. I've had some of those designers at luxury price point before. I've had meetings with the Webster, with Bergdorf, with stores that are like super high end. And what they tell you in general is that they pick up brands that have a social media presence, that actually have a demand, like that people have been talking about, or that have a niche that they can't find or that they think is interesting. That's kind of like the two directions those kind of buyers are going right now in the US. I can't talk for everywhere, but that's basically what they've been telling me. I think if you don't have an agent, your best bet is probably to develop your social media and really sync your collection, look at the store and look at, you know, what other designers are doing and sync your own product as like a difference. And like advertise it that way on social media. And then, you know, email the buyer. I mean, you can always get an email address. We do it too. And if you have an agent, that's definitely an investment. Luxury price points are harder. It takes more time. You need to know that. But when it actually works, it works really well. It's longer to establish, and it's a very slow process. You don't get into Nordstrom and sign 30 stores. It doesn't happen that way.
Yeah, yeah. I think also, I think it should be interesting to note that Americans, I guess you are American, even though you're French.
Yeah, that's what my mom says.
Yeah, are very different people. So, you know, we in Europe, we're somewhat more reserved, you know. We're more, Americans are much more open to email marketing.
Yeah.
They do respond to marketing more. And if you send, you know, an email which says buy now or look now, whereas we might reject it over here, Americans tend to notice this more. And I think you shouldn't be shy about really pushing your brand in some way, you know, to make sure that people do that. Now, okay, so what about social media? So do you have advice for brands about using social media, and do you have any particular channels that you think are better for social media than others in terms of getting the brand known?
Yeah, it's hard. I think, you know, like, for example, we decided right now in the showroom to actually create a complete different department for marketing our brands ourselves. So use our own media, right? So the brands that sign through the showroom now, we use our Instagram, we use our newsletters. We actually do what I'm saying to do for our designers, because we noticed it was really hard for them. So in terms, you know, when we saw the crisis, instead of like being like, you know, we're going to basically, we decided to add services and make them stronger in terms of like getting their communication out there. And I think in terms of Instagram, most of the time, well, in the US, I guess like celebrities and socialites still work very much, but it's expensive. But if you can have some of your products that people fall in love, you know, naturally. I always remember my friend Honoré Després, he has this like nail polish in Paris, and Jessica Alba fell in love with it. He didn't do anything, but she was putting it everywhere. It's like that. Those kinds of things are awesome, but pretty rare. So I think it's all, you know, also about developing your voice. And like now, like that we are all confined, actually people have been spending a lot of time on social media. So it's maybe the right time to like really put your brand out there and think about your DNA and how you want your brand to be portrayed. I think people are interested in honesty, and like, you know, especially now, like they like to see a brand and what she has to say. So I think that's where I would start.
Yeah, yeah. So there's another question here, which is how, if you're a designer brand, how can I attract buyers and how can I find an agent? Well, I'll just answer a little bit for myself here and blow our own trumpet that, you know, that is what we do. We help fashion brands to find agents. But, you know, you know, you can Google and find showrooms all over USA, in New York, in LA, in other places. And you just got to, you know, introduce your merchandise to them. You don't need to use somebody like me. It's not easy to find showrooms. Showrooms are busy. And as we previously discussed, you have to be willing to invest in a cost. But I want to address this, something which is of interest to me, is that people often, you know, say, well, okay, I want you to take my collection. You say, but what's your turnover? What can you guarantee me? Well, I know nobody can give any guarantee. That's just not possible. But I think what I want to say is that in order to, you need to take a different approach. Like, what are you going to do to facilitate your brand to grow with the showroom? What process are you going to put in place? What social media are you going to invest in as a brand? Because these are the things you've got to do. You know, gone are the days where you say, here's the collection, shake your hand in 3 months' time and send me the orders.
It didn't work.
Okay, you need to have some kind of involvement. It doesn't mean you've got to spend tens of thousands, but you do need to have a proper investment, a proper process, a thought out turnover, what you want to achieve. And then you're going to get the respect and the interest of the showroom who wants to work with you, because they know that you're professional and you're serious. You agree with me?
I totally agree with you. Actually, my sales girl, I'm sure they're listening. They're like, yes, Anton. Because like it's a major thing. I think signing with a showroom, I always say to my new clients, it's like getting married. Seriously, like we have to talk all the time. It's a support system. Also because usually we're far, so like you need to be able to get on WhatsApp, on calls, and like really like have like it's not going to be like, oh, I'm giving you the collection and leave it there. And I've had so many Europeans that actually did that, give me the collection, and we didn't hear from them for 3 months. Doesn't work. Like you need to be talking to your salesperson. You need to understand what's going on in the market, how to fine tune your launch, and definitely the materials, the lookbook, the Instagram. Like we need all these things for sure.
Yeah, good. So there's a question here from one of my favorite people, Tom. Hi, Tom's in Australia.
Hi, Tom.
Hi guys. How important is price point? Do you think it's more important in the US compared to other countries? Well, you may be in a better position to judge that than me, because coming from France, you have that connection, maybe better, even very well. But what about price point? How important is it? And has that changed, and will it change, do you think, with this new situation?
Well, I think it depends on which market we're talking about. In the luxury market, the price point is not very important in the US. I when I used to have my store on Park Avenue, I saw I saw women coming with their credit cards, and I was like, whoa, this was like 2 months of my rent. Yeah, so I think at a luxury price point, no. But at the contemporary price point, the US market is extremely competitive, especially if you do something that's close to them, like denim or t-shirts, like things that, the Americans are pretty good at, then you need to be on your toes. But I think that contemporary market is pretty sensitive for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So we had another question here. No, it's not a question, it's just a comment, sorry. Oh no, there is one here. If you're a brand with one product only, is it better to go to a showroom or enter into the US market in another way?
Like a category, you mean?
Yeah, one category. I think this particular company is specializing in shawls and scarves, and so they're wondering what's the better way, what's the better route for them to go to market?
So that's a difficult question. I think it depends on what your category is. The problem is when you do like one category, as a showroom, we highly depend on big business, like department stores, because the small boutiques, like let's say you do a shawl, right? Or like scarves. A small boutique's order in scarves is going to be like a super, super small order, which we can do. And especially now that we have the jour system, it becomes easy to get those smaller orders. But that means you're dependent on like bigger quantities for sure. So my answer would be like, yes, but then you need to be ready to the big quantities and the big guys.
Yeah. Okay. So, I do think we've covered most points here. I don't need to stretch this out. There is another thing I wanted to share with you, which is, just a minute. 1 second. So here is a list of the selling dates, which you'll be able to access as a recording from here. So you can see where everything works and where it works. There's quite a lot more selling that goes on. So yeah, so that will be available to everybody later. So I kind of just summarize here. So unless your product is kind of geo-dependent, can I say, then the USA is a great market to target. You've got to be patient with it. You've got to take your time. You need to find the right person. And importantly, you need to have your own process ready, your own plan, which you work in coordination with a good showroom. Do your homework, find out what's happening in the market, ask the agents you're working with or plan to work with, and get to know your target audience as well. the culture and the shopping expectations of your target market, you also need to find out. Build your business on a trend. Use the internet to discover all that you need to know to follow up. So I think that's all, unless anybody's got any more questions. Hold on, there's more flying through. One moment.
The good thing, Anton, before we start
go
with a
ahead.
new question, I kind of wanted to add a positive note, because today I got, we heard yesterday back from Revolt, for example, that wants to place an order from one of our new brands, which is really exciting. So, the US are, sometimes hard, but also faster to rebound. Just
okay.
side note.
Okay, there's a question here. There's a demand. Is there a demand in the US and Europe for accessories for the home? I don't know if that's your area of expertise. My own experience is that yes, but things like slippers, pillows, and so on, we're really more into fashion, but I know that these things, all of these things sell. Do you know much about that area?
Well, I don't know much about the area except for, talking with my buyers at Anthropology, for example, where they have a whole home section that has been literally pulsing through this entire period.
Yeah.
They sell pillows and stuff like this. And I have a friend of mine who has a brand called Danago, and they do bags and pillows and home accessories. And she's doing really well in the US. There's definitely a big demand for this. People spend a lot of time in their house and love decor. So, I mean, it's not my area of expertise, but I think there's definitely a market there.
Julie, got a very interesting question for you, which I think might be really of interest to others. That is, could you talk through what exactly you do when you take up a new brand, when you take a new label? Talk through the process from perhaps the first meeting, looking at the brand, and right through to when you first market it.
So the way that we work, and I don't think a lot of showrooms work that way, we do a full strategy. So basically, and it's included in our contracts, we will talk to you, we will look at your brand, at your lookbook, at your price point, where you sell in Europe or wherever you are, and then where you sell in the US if you are sold, or where we want to sell you if you're not sold. And we really try to see where is the strength in your collection, who your competitors would be, what your environment has to be, and what would be your pitch to a buyer. How would we describe the niche that you would be having for them is extremely important. So we spend a lot of time on this. It's actually, and as well as merchandising, we look at your whole collection, ask you your best sellers in Europe or anywhere else. We kind of really advise on everything, colors, structures. This document that we start with is really big. We spend a lot of time on it, almost a month. But we do it together, and it's kind of a deciding steps on what we're going to follow in the future. And that's what we first do. And then once we have that set with you and we agree on everything, the niche, the pitch, the stores that we want to target first, then we start outreaching and putting in place a strategy.
Okay. Quite a few people are asking, is there a market for luxury lingerie? Is there a market for a new women's accessory brand? I mean, my answer before Julia answers is yes. There are, if your brand is good, professionally presented, very well photographed. I'm a bit passionate about image. That's my big thing, image. You have a good, strong image. That makes such a difference between people noticing what you do and not. So I think anything that is coming from a professionally organized company will be of interest in the American market. I think American is so big that somebody's going to buy something there, or there'll be a group of people who are going to be interested in in it. And somebody says about evening and party wear, which are cool and glamorous, washable. Is there a good market for evening wear?
Washable? That washable is awesome. That's really important. Rent the Runway, which is a big website that sells, they rent evening dresses, and they always ask us for washable evening dresses. Definitely.
Okay, so that's great.
And then for lingerie, I would go back to a little. It is. There's always a market, like you're saying, Anton, and the image is definitely super important, especially, for example, in lingerie. Sexy in the US, the US girl wants to be sexy. So like the way that you portray your collection has to be a little bit different than Europe, for example, in terms of the lingerie. That is a definite.
Yeah, I think we're a little more subtle, aren't we,
Yeah.
in Europe? Put it mildly. Okay. And what about Neiman Marcus filing for bankruptcy? I mean, will the luxury market be different because of that? Do you think it's going to affect it in any way?
I mean, Neiman is sad. It was actually a very nice department store to work with. I've had many buyers there, and they're very nice always. You know, you have your little favorites, but they were not doing great for a minute, and we will miss them. But I think some department stores are, you know, going towards that road of working better with designers. Like Nordstrom is really good at promoting designers, and all the, you know, online like Shopbop is amazing at working with designers.
Yeah.
So there's some out there that are, you know, kind of new generation department stores that understand better how to work with designers.
Okay, good. So what about catalog companies, pyramid selling? These guys are meant to be losing market share or likely to grow in this new world. What do you think?
Huh, that's an
A question
interesting
from
question
somebody. Yeah,
that I actually have not asked myself. I can put on my bucket. We do work with some of them,
yeah,
and they usually are actually pretty strong in the US once they're established, because, you know, in that's what I'm saying, like, you know, Ohio and like, I don't know, Missouri, like, you know, people don't really necessarily have like a lot of stores, so they do use still those like catalogs and sales. So why not? Yes, that's actually a very interesting question.
Okay, there's a lot of interesting questions coming through. We may have to stop, but right now we'll carry on. Um, as we anticipate or read upcoming trends and reports in sustainability, really going to be a key focus area for buyers. And do luxury consumer buyers really care about sustainability? I'll answer before you do a little bit here, because it's something I've been sort of studying and reading up on. I do think that anything to do with sustainability is more and more important. As I said at the beginning, there's enough clothes in America for everybody to have 51 articles each, and that's clearly nonsense. So there's too many clothes. What we need to do is to make our clothes more sustainable, more reusable in some way, whatever that is. I think sustainability, and people are becoming more aware of it. So I think I don't know if you have a view on sustainability at all.
Well, I mean,
Are your shops saying to you, we're looking for sustainable brands?
they're not really saying that, but I think it's more coming from the customer. And I think it depends on the customer bracket, actually, very interestingly. So millennials are extremely sustainable focus. And also the more like mature customer is. I think the middle customer is not as much, but yeah, it's coming. It's definitely like a trend in the US. And it all depends on regions in the US. The thing you have to think with the US is like, one state is kind of like one country, right? If you go to California and then you go to Texas, this is like, whoa, two different worlds, really.
You have to be careful there, because you get me on my favorite subject, that, you know, Americans, we're divided by the same language, you know, totally different people.
Yeah, completely. Like California is like health and quinoa and you know, sustainable to the root, but Texas not so much.
Yeah, no, that's true. There's a question here about people are saying that subscription business models and 3D fashion shows are the future of fashion. Do you or Julia agree? Well, I give you my view on that. That I do think that these 3D fashion shows, which really can show the collection very well, are really good tools. I don't think they are the way to sell. I think it's a great tool to help selling. So, you know, you can entice maybe a client into your showroom by showing them a really good 3D. But, you know, if somebody's going to be buying from a 3D fashion show, then there's a big risk, because there's trust has to be involved. So if a shop's buying from a 3D model and it doesn't arrive the same way as it looked on the 3D, you've got a big problem. I think that's the same problem that many people who are selling online have, that, with things being sent back, with great regularity. Certainly, if it's anything like my wife, 90% goes back. But, what's your view on 3D? And Julia, I don't know if you've experienced it
Well,
at
I
all.
kind of, I think the same thing. I think it's a tool that you can use. I mean, it would be great if you could have some kind of criteria that would say to buyers that, it's approved or something that would make them feel comfortable about buying something they didn't try or they didn't see. But I think it's going to be hard. I think it's a good tool to attract them to come and see the collection for sure. But I also think that fashion shows, the goal of it, I mean, I understand, videos are great, like it shows the collection, but the goal of fashion shows was also networking, right?
Yeah.
Meeting people and being in that atmosphere. And I don't think that could be replaced. But, we all need to adapt, and we can find mid solutions, I guess.
Yeah. No, that's true. Another interesting question here is British luxury still appealing to the US customer for cashmere?
Like the French one.
You took the words out of my mouth. What I was going to say, that there are certain countries where you say the name and I think people are interested. So,
Yeah.
French clothing, Italian clothing, British design, these are all, this always attracts buyers.
Yeah, it's just not enough anymore. It's a good start, but you have to go further. Yeah.
Well, it is that catch-all, isn't it, to stop people? It's like the great image. I know when we're trying to introduce a brand to a showroom, that first wording, that we use, or the image that we show, makes all the difference between somebody being interested and no interest. Yeah. Okay, so I think we've pretty well covered everything here. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you so much, Anton. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, you're all welcome to contact Julia. She's always interested in new brands. And if anybody wants a showroom for their brand in the USA or anywhere else, please do contact me. We are really have a great expertise in this. This is the first webinar on my way to being the rock star.
We all vote for you being a rock star, Anton.
So we're going to be doing some further webinars on Korea, on China, on the Middle East, on Germany, and so on around the rest of the world. And we'll probably do London as well. So thanks again, everybody. Have a really nice evening, a nice day, wherever you are. And yeah, see you all again soon, I hope. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, Julia. Cheers.